right, guys, we're back. Make sure your cameras are on. Jacqueline, I received your message. I will reply after class, okay? All right, cameras, make sure your cameras are on. Make sure you have your full names in the you're allowed to change your name. Make sure you have your full name here in the Zoom chat, in the Zoom session. Make sure it's correct. First and last name. So it matches your registration and it matches when we give you a certificate. Make sure you have it correctly. First and last name. All right. All right, we're going to jump real quick into rights in real estate. Make sure your cameras are on, your name is correct. And let's move forward. We got rights in real estate. First, we need to understand a couple of things. There's difference between real estate and real versus personal property. There's estate, and there's real estate and regulations regarding real estate interests. The first thing I want to do before we move forward is address this word right here. Who can tell me in the chat, what does this word mean before we start the actual chapter? What does this word mean, estate? What do you guys think? Cameras on, please. Let me know your thoughts on these words. Okay, Amy says property. Anybody else? What does the word estate mean? No Googling, right? Okay, you just go with whatever you feel it is. No Google. Just put whatever you think it is. Olga says place. All right. Romilla says the land. Nee. This is your first and last name. Residence. Property. Okay. Anybody else? There's 18 of you, so come on. There's 18 of you. I need more answers here. Let me know that you're there. Okay, that's another way that I know that you guys are participating and pay attention. So, all right. Asset says Lee. Property says Riza. Or Reza, I don't know. Where's Riza? Is it Riza or Reza? Riza? Okay. You rise above, that's what it is? Good. All right, Rocio says property ownership. Okay. There's only 10 more people to answer. Go ahead. Do not Google, just give me your opinion. Chidera, don't send anything private, because then you make me switch something here so I can reply to all. Place, land, property. All right. Land. Cool. So, let's go back to this word. Estate. Estate means asset. Estate means something you own. So it also means property. And when we say property, the reason why I didn't write property first is because there's a difference between real property and personal property. So the word estate has nothing to do with real estate by itself. The word estate means assets. It could be personal property, like a cell phone or a car, right? Or clothes. It could be personal property, or it could be real property. And for real property, we call it real estate. That means it's a property, a land that you own. You guys got it? So you need to understand the meaning of the word estate, asset, property that you own, or rights or entitlement that you have in a property. Okay? Make sure you write that down. Estate, property that you own. All right. So, moving forward, we're talking about rights in real estate. So, what are rights? Basically, it's the entitlement you have to the property, right? So, what can you do with the property? So, real estate as a property, we have different definitions and different rights that we have with the property. It could be land by itself. It could be real estate, which is land plus improvements. I'll go over in detail. Property, which could be personal property, real property, or converted to one or the other. And then there's real property rights, such as mineral rights or subsurface. There's air rights, there's water rights. These are things that could be sold independently of the property. And guys, just in case anybody gets confused, I just want to let you know it gets a lot easier over the next few days. This is the first day, so it might be overwhelming, some of the stuff we're going to go over now, terms and stuff. But tomorrow we're going to repeat a lot of stuff from today and the day after and so on, okay? So, a simple definition of real estate is that it is air, water, land, and everything affixed to the land, okay? Real estate in the United States may be owned privately by individuals and private entities, or publicly by government entities. Private ownership rights in this country are not absolute. Even though you have maximum rights, the government can impose taxes and other restrictions on private ownership rights, right? So you cannot build a house whatever way you want. It has to abide by certain rules and regulations to benefit the community. So that's what we're talking about here. In addition, other private parties can also exert their rights and interests in one's real property. A bank, for example, can take the property if you fail to pay, right? You have a mortgage, you don't pay, what do? They foreclose. Very important. A neighbor can claim the right to walk across one's property whether the owner likes it or not, provided that he or she has done so for a certain number of years. We'll talk about that better later. So, in attempting to define real estate, it is essential to understand what rights and interests parties have in the parcel of real estate. And to understand real estate rights and interests, one must first recognize the distinction between them, between land and real estate, between real estate and property, and between real property and personal property. So, let's start with land. What is land? Okay. One of the things I want you guys to understand before I move forward is where it says land, we're talking about raw land. What is raw land? Well, and I don't want you guys to get visuals, but think about it. When a baby is born, does he come with clothes? No, it's raw, just as nature intended. Here it is. That's the baby, right? And then eventually, the first thing we try to do is put clothes on. So raw land is as nature intended. That's land. And this includes the surface area of the earth, everything beneath the surface extending downward into its center, and all natural, keyword, natural things permanently attached to it, to the earth, the air above, to the surface of the earth, extending outwards to infinity. So every time you look at a question, so this is good for state exam, every time you look at a question that talks about land and you don't see anything that could have been done by a human, right? So there's trees, there's bushes, there's rocks, right? That was nature. But if you see paved, then was nature the one that paved the land? You see what I'm saying? So when you look in the state exam, you look at land. That's what it is. Nature only. Land, therefore, and this is in green, so it's very important you understand. Land, therefore, includes minerals beneath the Earth's surface, water on or below the Earth's surface, and the air above the surface. In addition, land includes all plants attached to the ground or in the ground, such as trees and grass. A parcel or tract of land is a portion of land delineated by its boundaries. So a parcel or tract of land is, this is what's mine. Here's the neighbor's property, okay? And here's the road, and so on. So the parcel right here has boundaries, okay? All right. Physical characteristics of land. So land has three unique physical characteristics. Land is immobile, meaning it can't be moved. Let's look right here, the example I gave you guys. So there's the road, there's our piece of land, and the neighbor's piece of land, right? Can we move this land somewhere else? Can we take this and put it in a different town, for instance? We cannot. We can dig, we can take dirt out of it, right? But we cannot take the location. The location is fixed, it's immobile, all right? So that's the first characteristic. Since a parcel of land cannot be moved from one side to another, in other words, the geographical location of a tract of land is fixed and cannot be changed. The second thing is that land is indestructible in the sense that one would have to remove a segment of the planet all the way to the core in order to destroy it. And non-homogeneous means that there's no two parcels of land that are exactly alike. So let me ask you this. If I go here, these lots, they're both the same. 25 by 100, 25 by 100. They're both the same in size. The road is right here. My property, neighbor's property. Here's my question. Ready? Are these properties the same? Let me know in the chat. Did they have the same value? Let me know in the chat. Do they have the same characteristics? Let me know in the chat. They're both the same size, 25 by 100. Are they the same? All right, cool. No, 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 no. And Olga says no because of different value. Okay, so we'll address that. Okay, very good. So no, they're not the same. Why are they not the same? Because even though they have the same size, one is closer to the road. It has a different value than the one that's further away from the road. Or let's give the example of cities or location. If I have a 25 by 100 here in Newark, does it have the same value as a 25 by 100 in Linden? And the answer is no. Their size is the same. Location is unique, even if it's side by side, already has different unique characteristics. And that's what we're talking about here. Right? Two adjacent parcels, so right next to each other, they can be very similar and have the same economic value. However, they're inherently different because each parcel has its unique location. All right? As far as real estate, so we talked about land. Well, real estate is land plus all man-made structures. Okay, so that's the difference. Real estate is land, as we defined earlier, right? And all man-made structures that are permanently attached to the land. So like I said, the moment you paved it, it wasn't nature, it was you. So now it becomes real estate, all right? And now it might get confusing because you're like, well, but real estate, you said, Bruno, you said estate is asset, real estate is real property, and you're talking about man-made structures, and the concept is simple. If this word means asset, Concept is very simple. Are you guys going to improve someone else's property? Would you go to your neighbor and say, hey neighbor, would you like to for me to improve your property? No cost. Barely anybody does that, right? So real estate is man-made structure. So for a land to be developed, somebody purchased the land, it becomes their asset. You guys understand what I'm trying to say? So it becomes real estate because now there's some type of possession, some types of rights or ownership to the property. Real estate ownership, real property ownership, which is now land plus all improvements made by humans. Okay? Any questions here before I move forward? No? All right, so with that being said, real estate therefore includes, in addition to land, fences, streets, buildings, wells, sewers, sidewalks, and piers. So such man-made structures to the land are called improvements. Every time you see the word improvement, we're not talking about you putting painting your walls in your bedroom, for instance. Okay, that's an improvement to your house. Okay, when we talk about for real estate, for the exam, when you talk about improvements, we're talking about anything that's added to the land. So there's raw land, as we defined earlier, and then there's man-made improvements. So improvements is all man-made structures. You paved it, you improved it. You put sewer lines, water lines, you improved it. You put a house, you improved it. You put a garage, you improved a pool, you improved it. Does that make sense? So the word improvement is improving the land itself. Okay? But only for this. Because in real life, then when we talk about I improved my property by doing this or doing that, that's a different story. Okay? Like you add a chandelier or you make it central air, so you improved your house. Okay? Improvement to the land is anything that's added to the land. All right? So as we said before, land. Okay, just a quick visual. We have land and we own from the surface. This is land, right? This is our piece of land, our parcel. We own from the surface all the way to the center of the earth. So these are called subsurface rights right here. And then there's natural attachments. As you can see, there's a tree right there. And we own the air above it. So all the way to space, we own the air above it. We're going to go over in detail in a second. As far as real estate, it's the same concept as we saw right up here, right? It's the same concept, but now there's a house. There's a sewer. There's a pool. There's a garage. There's the pavers. All that stuff was added to the property. So there's man-made attachments, and that makes it real estate. All right. Next thing we have. All right. In common understanding, property is something that is owned by someone, as I said, so the estate. Always interrupting my. Unbelievable. All right. Sorry, guys, visitors. So a car is property of Bill Brown if Bill Brown owns the car. If this item is not owned, it's not property. So we just talked about that, okay? For more technical standpoint, property is not the only item that can be owned, but also the set of rights to the item enjoyed by the owner. And these rights are commonly known as the bundle of rights. So when you own property, technically what you own is rights, okay? And what rights do you own? If you remember, when you purchase something, right? Let's say this, you purchased from someone, right? Anything that you purchase from someone, okay? Does it mean that this is your phone? It is. And what can you do with your phone? You can sell it, you can give it away, you can use it, you can improve it, like putting a cover. You can do whatever you want. It's yours. And the house is the same. So not only do you have the possession of it being yours, you can also do other things. You can possess, use, exclude, transfer, or encumber. Crazy word we're going to talk about later. Okay? So what's transferred to you from the seller to you, the buyer, is rights. So in owning property, one has the right to possess and use it as the law allows it. Okay, another key word. As the law allows. Right? So very important, because you cannot do just whatever you want. There's building codes. Romero, I see you're typing. Okay, so there's building codes. The owner has a right to transfer ownership of the item. They can sell, rent, donate, as I was saying. The owner may also encumber by putting a mortgage to it as collateral for the debt. And you can also exclude people from the use of them. Okay. Yes, and we're gonna go over them. So Romello just asked if the bundle of rights is the words here. Yes, it's the right of possession, right to use the property, right of enjoyment, right to exclude people, right to transfer or gift. So these are different rights we're gonna go over in a little bit. Faster, Romello, faster. Type it, write it. No, I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with you. Go ahead. I just saw you going like this. All right? Good. Classifications of property. We have real property, we have personal property. All right, so real property is land and anything attached to it, right? So that's real property. So it's the real estate and the bundle of rights that come with it. Where personal property is ownership of anything that's now real estate and the rights associated with owning personal property item. So items of personal property. If you guys ever see personal property, items of personal property are also called chattels or personalty. Now, I'm going to explain better that real estate is immovable, right? So you cannot move the house, you cannot move the land. Real estate is immovable, where personal property is movable. It comes with me, right? Personal property is movable. So when you see chattels, you can remember cattle. You're probably like, cattle, why? What's the sound that cattle makes? Let me know in the chat. What's the sound that camel makes? Write it down. Three dots, Vanessa? I don't think three dots is what the cattle makes. There you go. That's right. They make moo. Therefore, personal property is movable. All right? One way to remember. Some of you got such a serious face. It was supposed to be funny. Smile. Now, I demand. Smiles. Movable. All right? Or you can do what Vanessa says and just lol. And that's a lolasso. Yes. Anyway. Hey, Fallon, I know you were smiling when I did this. I know you're laughing and smiling at what I said. She had the mask on, but I know she was. All right. Since all real estate in the United States is owned by some person, private organization, or government entity, all real estate in the country is real property. Given the fact this text will follow the customary practice of using two terms interchangeably and synonymously. So tangible versus intangible property. I think this is easy to understand. Tangible is something you can grab. Intangible is something that you cannot, right? So to make it simple, it's abstract. Here are some examples of tangible real property is everything. Tangible personal property, we're looking at boat, car, or jewelry, something you can hold on to, or your phone, something you can hold on to. And then there's intangible, stock certificates, contracts, patents, right? Even though it's a paper that you can hold on to, is based on something that doesn't physically exist, okay? So intangible. Tangible you can grab, intangible you cannot. All real estate by its physical nature is a tangible property. Next thing we have is the real property rights. And this is the stuff that you found in the Eagle as Romello was trying to write it down. So real property rights consist of a bundle of rights associated with owning a parcel of real estate. For most of these rights is the right of possession. And that was obvious. It was the first thing I said. Right of possession, it's with me. If I buy real property, if I buy real estate, then I should be able to go into my house and take possession of my house, right, that I purchased. The next one is the right to use. So you have right of possession. You have the right to use the property, refers to the right to use it in certain ways, such as mining, cultivating, landscaping, raising, and building on the property. So legal ways. The right to use is subject to limitations of local zoning and the legality of the use. Now, one's right to use may not infringe on the rights of others to use and enjoy their property. For example, an owner may be restricted from constructing a large pond on her property if, in fact, the pond would pose flooding and drainage hazards to the next door neighbor. So like I said, you can do, Chidera, I see that you were writing, so I'll let you write. But you could do whatever you want with your property, but if it's going to affect the welfare of the community, right, something like it could cause a flood on the property and go to your neighbor's property, then you are responsible for those damages. You guys understand? So you might be limited on what you can and cannot do. Right? Waiting on Chidera to finish this question before I move to the next portion. Okay. The important things we need to know, which are highlighted. I wanted to know if they were highlighted in the book as well. Yep. So when you, not in the physical book, if you ordered the physical book, but the ebook, the one that I'm using here is the one that's available for you guys as well in the student portal. Okay. So everything is highlighted. Now, since you brought that up, let me give you a heads up. Don't study just the highlighted stuff. The highlighted stuff is kind of like call to action. All right. I have people that unfortunately what they do is just study the highlights, study highlights. There's 6 or 7 different versions of the state exam. All right. What I highlighted is what's most common to pop up, or a question around this subject will pop up in the state exam. You got it? So make sure you don't just read what's highlighted. So the next right that we have, guys, is the right to transfer. Now, transferring interest in a property includes the right to sell, to bequeath, which is put in the will, to lease, donate, or assign ownership interests. It is your property, so you can dispossess of the property whatever way you want. Okay? Now, an owner may transfer certain individual rights of the property without transferring the total ownership. Also, one may transfer ownership while retaining certain individual interests. For example, a person may sell mineral rights without selling the right of possession. On the other hand, the owner may convey all the rights except the mineral rights. So what we're saying is, let's say, and I'll like give this example from the previous book, the Dearborn version. Let's say we know that there's oil on our property. Now, I don't have the money to buy the machines to drill for oil and refine the oil or anything like that. I don't have that money, right? But I can go to an oil company and say, hey, oil company, would you like to come into my property, right? Drill for the oil and do whatever you want with the oil, right? They can say that in exchange for money. So I'm selling the rights to drill for oil. I'm selling the subsurface rights. I'm selling the rights for oil that's underneath the surface, right? Did I sell the possession of the property? Are they entitled to sell anything? Can the oil company sell anything other than what they purchased? No. The oil company has the right to drill for oil. That's it. They can sell their right to another company, but they cannot sell the property. You guys got it? Give me a thumbs up if you got it. All right, cool. So while all the rights are transferable, the owner can only transfer what the owner in fact possesses, as I was saying. A property seller, for example, cannot sell water rights if there's no water rights attached to the property. So if you don't have water around, like a lake or a river, can you say, hey, I'm selling the water rights of the property that's like 5 miles away from me? Can't. It has to be part of your property. Another right that you have is the right to encumber. We call this the right to enjoyment as well. What is encumber? You can do whatever you want with the property. It's yours. You can even encumber it, meaning you can put a mortgage if you want. It's yours. You want to take benefit of the property for its value? Go ahead. Right? You don't have the money to buy the property, you're going to have to encumber it regardless. Simply means putting something attached to the property. Encumber is attaching something to the property. And again, we'll go over some of these words more in detail later. Next, we have the right to exclude. Now, the right to exclude gives the property owner the legal rights to keep others off the property and to prosecute trespassers. Simply, I keep my family out, right? Isn't that what excluding means? Keeping family and friends out, and we just keep inside whoever we want? It's a joke. Smile. Friends, family out. It's too early. Okay, it's not even 12 o'clock. Okay, 7 more minutes. All right, cool. So you can exclude whoever you want. You have the rights to the property. It is yours. Not even the government can get into your property without permission, unless it's something extreme, like you violated some. So we violated some rights or some laws, and then they can come into your property. All right. The bundle of real property rights also applies separately to the individual components of real estate, the air, the surface, subsurface, as I mentioned. You can sell everything separately. As far as surface rights, these surface rights apply to the real estate contained within the surface boundaries of the parcel. This includes the ground, all natural things affixed to the ground, and all improvements. Surface rights also include water rights. As far as air rights. Now, what are air rights? Instead of showing you this, I'm going to go into my whiteboard. All right. So we have the surface, and then we have a house on it. I'm really good at designing, okay? So here's my drawing, really cool. We have a house on it, okay? Now, my parcel of land is this. It starts here, right? And it ends right there. Now, the person that purchased the property next door wants to build a really, really tall building. We call it high rises, right? For this person to build a tall building, right, they just have to get approved by the town. As long as the town says yes, everything is okay. But now this person wants to secure, this developer wants to secure one thing, which is the view, right? To secure the view, and we'll look at New York, and New York, that's how it is. right? Manhattan, for instance. To look at the view, I have to make sure that the people around me don't build above a certain height, right? Because that's what gives value to my property. So let's say I want to stop any construction. I want to stop any construction around me to no more than the 100 feet. Let's say 100 feet. That's what we have here. But it's 100 feet from the ground. Notice that there's still a gap right here between the current structure and the limitation that we put. Okay, how did we limit? I came to this property right here, so I'm property A. I am property A, this is property B. So I went to property B and I said, hey, Mr. Owner of property B, I would like to purchase your air rights above 100 feet. Meaning in the future, if you want to develop your property, you could make it taller, but no more than 100 feet. Why is that? Because I'm selling the views, the penthouse suites, right? These are like the $10 million, the $5 million, the $3 million units. Why? Because they have the view. Are you guys understanding this? So I'm paying people around me. Let's say I give this person, I pay this person $1 million as an example, $1 million to not build above 100 feet from the surface. I own, so property B now owns all the rights above. All right? Let me know if you have any questions here. You guys good? Give me a thumbs up if you're good. Simple so far, right? So the next thing we have is subsurface rights. Again, is just selling the same way we sell air rights. We can sell what's underneath the surface. I already gave you the example of the oil rights, of being able to sell that separately. Whatever oil is found on the land could be sold separately. We also have water rights, and that's if your property is near the ocean, near rivers, streams, and so on. To figure out if you have, if you own the property, right? You need to answer these questions. Does the state control the water? Is the water moving? Is the water navigable? Okay. So there's a doctrine of prior appropriation. It says, since water is a resource necessary for survival, some states, particularly those where water is scarce, have taken the legal position that the state owns and controls all bodies of water. Now, this is called the Doctrine of Prior Appropriation, and this position requires that owners obtain permits for the use of the water. Meaning, if you want to drain, if you want to build something, to manufacture by the water, there are certain things that you need to get a permit for. Now, if proposed usage is reasonable and beneficial, the state will grant the permit, which over time can attach to the property of the permit holder. If the state does not operate under prior appropriation, so you need to know which state you're in, it operates under common law doctrines of littoral or riparian rights. In the state of New Jersey, as an example, we have littoral or riparian rights. And littoral rights, an easy way to remember, is that littoral stands for lakes. Littoral is for lakes or large bodies of water. Lakes or large bodies of water. Okay? So littoral rights. Lakes or large bodies of water. Non-moving water. Okay, and here's an example of littoral rights. So there's the the ocean right here or a lake, and you own the property up to the high water mark when it comes to a lake. High water mark. That means that's the highest that the water will go. Your property, you own it until then. All right? The next thing we have is riparian rights. And riparian rights, you have R for rivers. And rivers have a stream. Okay? So if there's a water flow versus the lakes that are standing water, oceans are standing water, not counting the tide, right? They're standing water. Riparian is for something with a flow. So a stream, rivers. Okay? Riparian rights. Now, we might be able to have riparian rights or not. It depends on whether the stream is navigable or not navigable. Okay? So here we go. All right, let me just quick. All right, so right here, how do we know if we own property or not? If it's navigable, then public transportation can go through. Let's say commercial boats, they can go through, right? There's enough room for them to go through. Then we own property up to the edge of that land. So property A, property B, up to the edge of the land. If it's non-navigable, all right, if it's non-navigable, if you guys can see, there's no way for a boat to go through, right? So if it's non-navigable, the property now ends at the middle of the stream. So property A, property B, they share the stream all the way to the middle. The middle is their common border. So in the navigable river, the public can go through, your property ends right here. In the non-navigable river, you might have rights to the water, your property extends to the center. You guys got it? Okay, cool. Next thing we have is real property versus personal property. The biggest difference between these two, again, as I said, one does not move and the other one is movable. Okay? So in conveying real property or transferring, right? Conveying means transferring. Real property is vitally important to recognize the distinctions between personal property and real property that is to be conveyed. Confusion can arise because items of property may be either personal property or real property depending on the circumstances. The primary criteria for distinguishing real from personal property is whether the item is permanently attached to the land or to structures attached to the land. For example, if there's a tree growing in one's yard, then it is an item of real property. It's growing in the yard. It's attached, permanently attached. It is part of it, so it's real property. However, once you cut down that tree, you severed it from the earth. You cut it from the earth, and now it becomes a tree, something that's movable, can go with you, so it becomes personal property. All right. Similarly, a swimming pool pump on the shelf of the owner's garage is personal property, but when installed with the rest of the pool, it becomes real property. So in this example, I like to say when you go to Home Depot or you go to Lowe's or anything like that, you purchase hardware. You're going to receive a bill, right, which is your receipt. We call it bill of sale, and it itemizes what's yours. When you're bringing it from Home Depot to the location, it's personal property. You put it on the floor, it's still personal property. But as soon as you build the wall, as soon as you put the sheetrock, as soon as you put it up, the 2x4s and all that stuff, and become the wall, now it's real property. So it was personal property while you could move it. But once you made it permanently attached, it became real property. All right? Now, a personal property item that has been converted to real property by attachments is called a fixture. So the examples that we have here, chandeliers, toilets, water pumps, septic tanks, window shutters, elevators, air conditioning, anything that's attached that was not part of it in the beginning. It was attached. It's a fixture. So when you think about it, we are used to having light fixtures. They are part of the building now, but they were attached to the building structure. They were not there in the beginning. You guys good with this so far? All right, cool. Now, the owner of real property inherently owns all the fixtures belonging to real property. When the owner sells, the buyer acquires the rights to all fixtures. Now, fixtures that are not included in the sale must be itemized and excluded in the sales contract. What does this mean? If you don't want something to be included in the sale, you must exclude it. Like a chandelier. Let's say that the chandelier is mine, right? While I own the property, it is mine. But when I sell it to you, I don't want you to take the chandelier. I'm taking the chandelier with me to another property. Then it should be itemized in the sales contract as an excluded item. Otherwise, it could be assumed that the chandelier comes with the property. You guys got it? So anything that wants to be taken out of the property should be itemized in the contract, or if not asked for in the contract, it could also be excluded. So it's very, very important that you know what goes with the property and what doesn't. Walls go with the property. Fixtures, like kitchen cabinets, might not be included in the sale, right? It said here toilets, water pumps, all this stuff might not be included in the sale. I actually know of a sale a few years back that the listing says that it's air conditioned, right? It has a central air in the building. But the appliance that stays outside was not included. So what the seller did is right before closing, he took out the air conditioned unit outside. Now, it's still central air, right? Because all the ducts are there, right? But there's no unit. So this should have been included or excluded from the contract. Obviously, the issue was resolved, but it's very important that you determine as a salesperson, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, is there anything here you'd like to include or exclude from the sale? All right, it's very important that you, the realtor, figure out what's included or not with the sale. Okay, very important. How do we determine what's ours and what's not? What goes with a property or it doesn't? Well, there's a few tests or criteria. We call it intention is one of them. And it's figuring out if it was intended to be removed or intended to permanently stay with the property. The adaptation. So after adding something to the property, does it become part of the property? Meaning it's custom designed. Is it something could be removed, and how will the aesthetics be of that thing that will be removed? Right? How would the property be now? Will it still be functional? All right. So how it was adapted to the property is very, very important. Functionality, right? So again, is it easily removable? Is it vital to the operation of the building and the relationship of the parties? Okay. So whether it's a landlord tenant, was it for business purposes? Was it not? So one way to remember easily is this. There are 4 tests. And we call it Maria, which is what I have here in green. Method of attachment, relationship of the parties, intention of the party annexing the item, and the adaptation of the article. So, how it was attached. Was it landlord-tenant, for instance? Was it intended to be something permanent or temporary? So if it was for a business, usually it's temporary. If it's a tenant, usually it's a permanent adaptation. And how does that adaptation, how does it affect the functionality of the building, right? Whether it's a residential or commercial. So these are the 4 methods to figure out what is a fixture and what is not a fixture. Okay, make sure you write this down. Maria, very, very important. Okay. Sorry, somebody got kicked out of Zoom and now trying to get back in. All right. Cool. So make sure you write this down, giving you some time. Uh, Zelene, you said here, please accept on WhatsApp. I don't have any requests. I didn't get any requests, but again, my number is 908-418-8325. Okay, and I'm sending you the link again to the WhatsApp group. Sorry, it's just Zelene. I was waiting for your message, but I didn't get it. All right, so moving forward, as I was saying, it's very important for you to know in the sale or in the lease what is included, what's excluded as a fixture. And then there's a difference between trade fixtures and regular tenant fixtures. Whether you are a business or you are a residential. So every time you see the word trade fixtures, we're talking about businesses and the items that are attached to conduct the business. For instance, guys, I have TVs here, right? So I have 2 TVs right next to me, and then I have one all the way behind the camera, right? So these TVs were attached to the property, but with no intention of leaving them behind once our lease expires, right? So the landlord knows that anything that we install for business purposes is temporarily affixed. So the landlord knows that he or she cannot keep the items, okay? Trade fixtures are for business, and these may be detached or removed before surrendering of the premises, okay? Regular fixtures might not be, okay? One more thing, I don't have it here highlighted, I'll highlight now, is this. Plants and crops requiring human intervention and labor are called emblements. What does this mean? So you have something called real estate, and we have personal property. Trees that grow by themselves and they're not planted, they're not intended to be cultivated, so crops and all that stuff, they're not intended to be removed later, right? Those are real property. But for instance, if you are you have corn, right, and you intend to sell that corn, well, you have to detach it from the land. You have to sever it from the land. So all these props that are for removal later, right? They are called personal property and emblements. Emblements. They're attached to the land, but they are intended to be removed from the land. Okay, so emblements. If it's vegetation, plants, or crops, they're intended to be removed. They are emblements. So anything that you cultivate, emblement, personal property. Okay. Oh, you sent it to me on Messenger, not on WhatsApp. I just received it. Celine. Okay. All right, so next thing we have, there you go. You got it. So here's some examples of real property and personal property. Under real property, we have land, we have fixtures, attachments, and conversions by affixing, so they become permanently part. Personal property are trade fixtures, emblements, or conversions by severance, so cutting off. So real property by affixing it. Personal property is by cutting it out of the property. Okay. Next, regulation of real property interests. Although the Constitution guarantees private ownership of real estate, meaning you can do whatever you want, it's yours, right? Laws and regulations at every level of the government qualify and limit your entitlement to the property, right? So yeah, I can do whatever I want, subject to certain limitations, as we mentioned earlier. And these limitations is pretty much for safety and welfare of the community. So government entities regulate the following aspects of real property interests. They regulate your bundle of rights, as I was just saying, the legal descriptions of the property, so that's determining the limits of your property. They regulate the financing, so for you to get a mortgage, it's highly regulated by the government, right? Who can get a mortgage or not? They create the guidelines for the banks to follow. Insurance, inheritance, and even taxation. So these are some of the government's ways of regulating, okay? As far as federal government, and this is brief, the federal government is primarily concerned with broad standards of real property usage, natural disaster, land description, and discrimination. So we will talk about every single one of these in different chapters, but that's the only thing that federal steps in. Most of it is trickled down to your local, through local ordinances to your municipality. So government says, hey, these are our rules, our main rules, and then you can enforce those rules and make them stricter to the homeowner. All right, so it trickles down to the actual homeowners. Okay. And we're going to skip that to local regulation. I just addressed this. Judicial would be court. So we're on page 26. I'm sorry, we're on page 27 now. And here are regulation of property interests. As I was saying, under federal, you have the Constitution, you have federal laws, and then you have federal agencies that oversee these regulations, these laws, right? Under state, same thing. Constitution, laws, and the agencies, and local, there's the laws, and courts have common law and case law. So just a brief summary, because again, we're going to go in detail in other chapters. All right, guys? So with that being said, we're done with chapter 2. Guys, we're going to go into a quick 5-minute break so I can set up for the next chapter. And so we'll be back at 12:25. You can go to the bathroom, You can get your coffee, you can get your food. Well, some of you are already eating. But you can do whatever you need to do. Just make sure you get your pump flow, your blood flowing, so you can go for chapter 3, and then we'll be done for today. All right, guys? See you in a little bit.